Things are peaceful in Metropolis as a hot dog vendor sells a hot dog to a curious buyer looking at the Metropolis Gold Exchange. Everything turns ugly in seconds as a tank rolls up to the Metropolis Gold Exchange and attempts to break in. The SCU shows up and attempts to stop the robbery, but is unsuccessful as the robbers are too strong with their armored tank, but also due to the recklessness of Dan Turpin and his arrogance, as he never listens to his partner Maggie. Fortunately, Clark and Lois are nearby, stuck in the city traffic. Lois runs onto the scene and takes guard with Dan and Maggie. Clark quickly changes into Superman and flies in within seconds to interfere, as the real mastermind of the whole robbery, Bruno Mannheim, is watching the live telecast with a sour face. Superman is initially attacked by heavy artillery, but he quickly recovers and takes the tank apart into pieces. He also takes the soldiers inside into custody. After all the drama has unfolded, Angela Chen makes the statement that Superman is the real power behind the SCU, upsetting Turpin. Elsewhere, Bruno Mannheim angrily curses his weapons, as they were worthless against Superman. Just then, Mannheim and his henchmen hear a loud explosion and see a strange man walking into their warehouse. They pull out their guns on this man, but he assures them it's unnecessary. The man introduces himself as Kanto and destroys Mannheim's gun with a strange staff he's holding, then offers the staff as a gift. Kanto continues to demonstrate more weapons, including a ray gun capable of easily melting tempered steel, and a pair of gloves making energy hands of greatly amplified strength. When Mannheim asks what they'll cost, Kanto tells him that they're free right now. Meanwhile, a suspicious Turpin sneaks over the fence and observes the weapons. He tries to follow Kanto, who uses a small device that causes an explosive flash of light, forcing Turpin to look away. When he looks back, Turpin finds that Kanto has disappeared. Back at SCU, Turpin is explaining everything to his partner Maggie, and she is worried Turpin is making all these bold, risky moves to catch the criminals without backup. The 4:30 money train is on the move, right on schedule, with its guards on board, and the Intergang is preparing a high-scale robbery into the train. Now armed with their new weapons, the gang manages to easily capture the train. They break the rail bridge, running the train into the ground, getting rid of the guards. News of the train robbery quickly travels to both the SCU and the Daily Planet. Turpin and Maggie are on the move, as Lois is cursing a slow elevator, while Superman flies at lightning speed from the Daily Planet. Turpin and Maggie drive as fast as they can towards the crime site, but they are shot with the energy rays within seconds. The car goes tumbling down a mountain and nearly crashes, but fortunately Superman is there to save them. Just as Superman starts to fly towards the robbers, he is attacked with the energy hands. They crash him into a heavy-duty electricity hub, making it come crashing down onto an incoming train, but Superman quickly recovers and puts matters in order. When Superman turned back, everyone was gone, and he couldn't stop the criminals for the first time. Turpin insists that Mannheim is behind the robbery and they should go after him, but Maggie Sawyer refuses. When she tells Turpin that she wants to bring Superman in on the investigation, he turns in his badge with disappointment. In spite of his resigning from the force, Turpin goes to Mannheim's house and attempts to make his own investigations, but is captured by the incoming Kanto, who cuffs him on the spot. Kanto tells Mannheim that his employer is pleased enough to give him a new weapon powerful enough to destroy Superman. After hearing about Turpin's resignation and his disappearance, Superman heads out to confront Mannheim. However, Mannheim is ready for him, as they already have a weapon which alerts them to the incoming Superman. Superman is confronted with thugs using the new weapons, which do give him a lot of trouble, as he is pelted with RPG missiles first, which he redirects at them. The energy hands get hold of Superman big time, and they're ready to crush him, but in the end, Superman is able to break the hold and throw them away. However, Superman finds that it's a trap. As Turpin warns him about the trap, Mannheim attacks him with his new gun and severely injures his enemy. He then points out that the gun isn't even at full power and adjusts it, thinking that he can finally rid himself of Superman, but Turpin tackles him right at the very last second, and Superman uses his heat vision on the gun and forces Mannheim to drop it. Mannheim runs out after Kanto, only to learn that he is no longer considered worthy of new weapons. However, rather than being captured, he follows Kanto into a strange portal. Later, the police arrive to secure the mansion and reporters. Superman explains how Turpin saved his life, and he seems a little more comfortable around the Man of Steel. When asked where Mannheim is, Turpin notes that he's out of Metropolis SCU's jurisdiction. Meanwhile, Mannheim is in a hellish land, where Kanto, now dressed in a bizarre Renaissance costume, takes him to meet his new lord and master. A tall figure with a deep voice, gray, rock-like skin, he is revealed to be Darkseid. On the distant planet Apokolips, Darkseid activates a machine that is watching over Metropolis Park. Lois Lane is out for a jog and finds it, a huge metallic sphere that sprouts arms and starts tearing the place apart. Lois calls it into the newspaper and is overheard by Clark Kent, who then takes off as Superman to deal with the machine. Superman arrives on scene just in time to save Lois, who is being dragged by the machine. He then finds that the sphere is equipped with a laser, which he takes down easily. But then an overhead lightning generator appears and strikes Superman with fierce force. It takes some time for the Man of Steel to fend it off, but he does at the end. Lastly, while strength wrestling with the machine through some boulders, Superman is attacked with a chainsaw. However, Superman breaks it off and puts an end to it. Observing this, Darkseid orders Darkseid to transmit the self-destruct sequence. Superman manages to get the machine away deep into space before it explodes. Darkseid tries to cover up his failure and asks for another chance. Darkseid refuses him, so Mannheim asks to return to Earth to restart Intergang. He, too, is refused. Calibak then approaches and asks for the chance to destroy Superman. Darkseid refuses him as well, claiming that the destruction of Superman is too important. Mannheim asks how Darkseid can take Kalibak seriously and is put into a slave pit as punishment. Darkseid decides that Kalibak can cover his failure and convinces him to go to Earth to destroy Superman in spite of being told not to. Darkseid assures him that Kalibak will finally be accepted as Darkseid's son. Believing this, Kalibak heads to Earth through a portal Darkseid creates. Back on Earth, Clark's parents show up to the Daily Planet and invite Lois to lunch as they run into her. Clark has to meet with his chief quickly, so the three of them go to the nearby fancy restaurant for lunch ahead of Clark. Unfortunately, Kalibak shows up near them and heads directly to the restaurant that Ma and Pa Kent are going for lunch. Kalibak then starts wreaking havoc in order to draw Superman's attention. As everyone inside starts running outside to escape the falling debris, Pa Kent foolishly waits inside, believing someone should confront Kalibak. The roof caves in and Jonathan is trapped inside. Clark is alerted to the situation and Lois and Martha tell him Jonathan is stuck inside. He attempts to save his father, but Kalibak attacks him from behind. The two fight, and it seems that Kalibak may win. But after many rounds of back-and-forth attacks, Superman manages to force him out of the building. Superman attempts to leave Kalibak outside while he goes to save his father. Insulted, Kalibak attacks again. The fight goes into the subway and nearly causes a train wreck, but Superman manages to stop the fight without any damage and leaves him in the subway. Superman emerges outside to the loud cheer of onlookers and relief of Martha, but it's short-lived as Kalibak is still not unconscious and attacks once more. He still fails to defeat Superman, but remembers Darkseid's lack of faith in him. He then redoubles his efforts. This time, Superman is nearly defeated as Kalibak shoves him into large pillars and buildings without any mercy. Even his adopted mother Martha cannot bear to look. Kalibak claims that he'll finally prove himself to his father. Upon hearing the word father, Superman stops holding back and hurls Kalibak several miles away. With Kalibak too far away to start any more trouble, Superman finally manages to save his adoptive father just before the roof caves in. With Pa Kent saved, Superman heads off to find Kalibak and finish the fight. However, before Superman can finish dealing with Kalibak, Darkseid appears and blasts Kalibak with his Omega beams, teleporting Kalibak away. Superman confronts Darkseid, but he too is hit by the Omega beams, which merely hurt him. Darkseid then vows that Superman and Earth will swear allegiance to him. Darkseid returns to Apokolips and explains to Darkseid that Superman cannot be destroyed with only one stroke. He then promises that he will cause as many deaths as it takes to destroy Superman and take Earth. A few weeks later, once again on a typical Metropolis night, the SCU escorts an armored truck into a heavily guarded building. The truck's cargo is revealed to be laundered money taken by Intergang and confiscated by the SCU, led by Turpin and Maggie like the good old days. Just then, the guards detect an incoming threat. Criminals driving a high-tech flying tank burst into the building. All attempts to stop the tank are futile. The tank lowers a tentacle and forces energy into Captain Maggie Sawyer's car, causing it to explode and badly injuring her. The tank then takes the truck and makes its way out of the building. Turpin runs out to check on the unconscious Maggie, and then furiously tries to shoot the machine down with no results. Outside, Superman arrives just in time and attacks the tank. At first, it seems that he will succeed in defeating the tank, but they fire a bomb that creates a sudden flash strong enough to disorient Superman. They then sound out a drone-like device that produces a screech so loud, all glass in the city shatters, and everyone hears it is stricken with pain. Superman is also affected by the device, and though he manages to destroy it, the criminals get away. Back at Mannheim's house, he is presented with the money, but a bracelet he's wearing starts beeping. He sends his men away and receives a holographic message from Darkseid, who is unhappy at Mannheim's petty use of his tank and destroys the money. He leaves Mannheim unharmed and tells him that he will soon make him a king if he serves him well. Meanwhile, at the Metropolis hospital, Captain Maggie Sawyer is being treated for grave wounds, and her partner Turpin is deeply hurt by her situation. At the press conference, Dan Turpin insists that they cannot expect Superman to save them every time, and the SCU will handle it themselves. Clark notes that the tank looks alien, but his claim is dismissed. Just then, a boom tube opens, and a helmeted man dressed in red flies in. He approaches Clark and exclaims, "Superman!" Though it seems that his secret identity has been revealed, the stranger then says, "Must warn Superman," and faints. Later, at Star Labs, the man angrily insists that he needs to see Superman. Superman arrives and the man introduces himself as Orion. Orion explains that Darkseid is coming and has his mother box explain the origins of Apokolips and New Genesis. The two worlds were once one, but they split in two. One that is almost pure good, New Genesis, ruled by the ever-wise Highfather, and the other is almost pure evil, Apokolips, ruled by the most demonic, omnipotent Darkseid. The two worlds were locked in eternal war because of their opposite nature, until Darkseid and Highfather exchanged their infant sons. However, Darkseid took this opportunity to search for the anti-life equation and conquers other planets. He has been conquering planet after planet for centuries now. Darkseid is after Earth, and human agents have Apokoliptian weapons. Soon after this, Superman and Orion are told by Dan Turpin that there are hover tanks attacking an Air Force base. Human aircraft proves to be no match for the tanks, but Superman and Orion land on the scene. Unfortunately, Superman is captured by one of the tanks and is hurt by massive surges of energy flowing through the metal tentacle, but Orion saves him. While Superman saves the pilots of the tank, Orion uses his advanced technology to destroy the rest of the tanks. This new Orion guy is extremely good with high-tech weapons. Even Mannheim is on the back foot now. Elsewhere, Darkseid talks to Mannheim about the battle. He recognizes Orion but decides it isn't important. He then says that he's ready to begin Phase 2 of his plan and takes Mannheim to a nuclear power plant, where the scientists panic upon seeing Mannheim and Darkseid with their demonic, otherworldly subordinates. At the end of the Air Force battle, Dan Turpin comes forward to thank Superman for saving them from this alien strike, but he says Orion is the real hero. When approached by Superman, Orion doesn't seem happy about the battle. He knows that Darkseid will strike again because Orion is his son, whom he traded to end war with New Genesis. He then leaves, but leaves Superman with a device to signal him for more help. Back at the power plant, Mannheim and some parademons activate a device to take out the reactor's cooling system. Darkseid then congratulates Mannheim on his success, but leaves him to die in the explosion, while dubbing him the King of Fools to complete his earlier promise. Mannheim tries to escape in a motorboat, but the explosion claims him. Superman and Turpin witness the blast and realize that the troubles are not yet over. It's just the beginning. After the explosion, Metropolis' sky has turned red. Professor Hamilton explains through a computer simulation that the reactor will melt through the planet until it reaches Earth's core. This will create an explosion that will cover Earth with more burn holes, essentially making it into a second Apokolips, just like the Demon Conqueror's home. On Apokolips, Kalibak congratulates Darkseid, who is sure that Superman will still resist him. Kalibak asks for another chance to kill Superman but is refused. Darkseid instead summons Steppenwolf from the fire pits and sends him to Earth. Back on Earth, Superman tries to call Orion, but the explosion damaged the device, so there is no hope of getting help. He heads off to stop the reactor, but is intercepted by Steppenwolf, who is coming out of the boom tube along with hundreds of parademons. He attacks Superman with a laser blast from a sword. Superman easily manages to destroy it, and Steppenwolf then sends his parademons to attack. Superman manages to beat the parademons, but is hit by an energy net that forces him to the ground, downtown Metropolis. Jimmy and Lois arrive, and though Lois tries to help Superman, the parademons get to him. They start to pile onto their prey as Steppenwolf watches from above. Somehow, Superman manages to fight them off. Just then, a missile strikes Steppenwolf's vehicle. Inspector Dan Turpin arrives in a helicopter and orders the pilot to fire again. Steppenwolf dive into the ocean. As more and more parademons try to engulf Superman, more members of the SCU arrive and fight off the rest of the parademons. Superman thanks Turpin and heads off to the power plant to put out the nuclear fire. Upon arriving at the power plant, Superman drills holes into the ocean floor and fills in an underground cave. When the reactor reaches the water-filled cave, it cools, and the threat is defeated. Tired out from his efforts, Superman goes to a cliff to rest since it has taken a lot out of him. Darkseid approaches Superman, and after subduing him with his Omega beams, offers him a chance to join him. Superman refuses, and Darkseid hits him with his Omega beams once again. In Metropolis Plaza, members of the SCU work hard to fight off the endless waves of parademons. Jimmy is nearly killed by a parademon attack, but Inspector Turpin saves him at the very last moment. Lois is also in the area, but she remains safe until a huge tank-like vehicle drives in. The tank has an interesting headpiece: Superman, broken and restrained. All fighting ceases, and Darkseid makes a speech of subjugation to the people of Earth. When Darkseid is done, unlike anywhere else, Inspector Turpin and the people oppose him. Turpin rallies the people with his brave energy. Even Maggie, who is watching the live broadcast, is tense. They start attacking again, and Turpin manages to free Superman. Kalibak attacks Superman but is easily defeated. Superman attempts to fight Darkseid, but before they can start, another boom tube opens, and several soldiers of New Genesis arrive. Orion tells Darkseid that Earth is now under the protection of Highfather, and any attack will be a breach of their treaty. Darkseid begins to retreat after a few words, and Turpin mocks him. Stating how no victory comes easily, Darkseid fires his Omega beams at Turpin, killing him, then disappears into a boom tube. Superman, mad with grief, destroys Darkseid's tank. Orion then offers his condolences. A funeral is held for Turpin where all of Metropolis attends, and a rabbi sings for him. Superman sadly stands over Turpin's tombstone and says goodbye. The Earth did not need a Superman to defend it. It needed one brave man to stand for it. Superman is proud to call Inspector Daniel Turpin, his friend, Earth's greatest hero. We might not have the power of Superman in life, my friends, but we should never forget the brave heart and willpower Dan Turpin showed us at the very hour of need. Thank you, my friend. You will always be remembered. Thank you for watching Second Look. Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more awesome videos. Have a nice day.